control of things that were very, very techy and geeky back in the days. So I think that's going to become a lot more important, driving productivity, operationalizing things at scale that enterprises will need as their digital footprints grow, and they have to show productivity in the spend they've made in the digital area.
Well, in our real world here on Earth, we are experiencing this record-breaking inflation. And I know that you work with a lot of state and local governments in the cloud-first approach. Have you had customers complaining about inflation and saying that they're having trouble with spending and allocating their budgets for cloud computing software because of it?
I think definitely our customers who in the end serve end customers like you and I are tracking inflation very closely, whether it's a Kroger in one end, whether it's an Uber on another end, or a GM selling cars on another end. And I think they're all very carefully watching how the demand cycle goes. I would say the demand cycle is still thoughtful and cautious. Customers are paying attention to where it can go. Everybody is looking at where the economy can land. So I think there is a sense of thoughtfulness. I would say that's not gone away. It's not a runaway train of demand. But I think in that, what is happening is demand is going towards fewer platform kind of players that can help customers navigate this area of uncertainty by giving more leverage, more productivity so they can get more out of their dollars. That's what end customers want, and that's what kind of we are helping our customers through our platform get out of their investments.
Any signs of recession?
Billion or $1 trillion question, I guess.
But you see, I mean, you're dealing with corporate, customers, and if they are a little bit worried, they can certainly rein in the spending. Any signs of that, even a little?
I say I don't see a sign of recession. I think there is a sign of generally everybody is hoping the second half is better than the first half. There is definitely a sense of thoughtfulness and caution in spite of where the stock market is today. I think if I ask my peer CEOs or customers I talk to, I think people are not thinking of the R word. They're all trying to find a way, how can we skirt, what kind of a landing do we have, and how can we skirt that from a hard landing to a soft landing or a very cushy landing. I think the general feeling is that the R word may not happen in the economy, but people are still being very, very careful. We all want to watch where consumer spending goes in the second half. So I think that's the current consensus.
We need to create like a spinning wheel of all the different kinds of landings that we've discussed all day, and just go around them all. I wonder what you can tell us quickly here about what you look at when determining your thinking about whether or not we're heading towards the big R word. Is there a specific data point that really sticks out to you as critical when deciding how you think about that?
Yeah, I think, look, first of all, I talk to hundreds of customers. So when you talk to the C-levels, I talk to CIOs, I talk to even my peer CEOs. So obviously there is a lot of stuff you can get from there that doesn't show up in the market. You can get that very quickly. So that conversation always helps. But in general, look at the trends. If deal cycles get elongated too much, if deals get smaller a lot, or deals start getting pushed out a lot, those are leading indicators of things that are happening in the enterprise world. Of course, inflation and consumer spending, if consumer spending starts going down, it obviously has a ripple effect back into the economy. I think that's another trend to look at. But those are the kind of very macro level things that you can stare at, and what I look at, or even when I talk to customers to what they are seeing, that gives us a sense of what kind of a landing, or whether we are going to a small R or a big R, whatever that happens.
All right, going to leave it on that note. Amit, thank you so much. Good to check in with you. He, of course, is the CEO of Informatica, joining us via Zoom from San Jose, California. Just a quick update, watching shares of Airbnb in the after hours. It's up almost 12% here. Of course, just breaking down the earnings after the close, giving an outlook for revenue in the first quarter that beat analyst estimates, signaling that travel demand remains robust even after a record year for growth in 2020. People are getting back to traveling. Carol Master, Maddie Mills, and this is Bloomberg. So Brian Curtis and Doug Krisner coming up at 6 p.m. Wall Street time right here on Bloomberg Daybreak Asia. Tonight's guests include Vanessa Chan, head of Asian fixed income at Fidelity International. That's Daybreak Asia tonight at 6 on Bloomberg Radio. Coming up next, we're going to get into a feature in the upcoming new issue of Bloomberg Business Week. We're talking Ben & Jerry's and a little bit of a tussle with its corporate owner. We'll get into that in just a moment with our own Devin Leonard. That's coming up.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
Breezy and mild weather will continue for the rest of today, followed by increasing clouds during tonight and dropping down to the 40s overnight. Morning clouds give way to some afternoon sunshine here Wednesday, breezy and quite mild, up near 60, lows of 50 at night. Chance of rain or showers developing later in the day on Thursday, though, but breezy and mild again. 60 to 65. Turn cooler later in the week. This is Gary Best with your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
This is Tom Keene.
I'm Jonathan Farrow.
And I'm Lisa Abramovic.
Join us tomorrow morning for Bloomberg Surveillance.
Suddenly, a 6-month T-bill at 5%. Kathy Jones joins and Charles Schwab.
And parsing markets' reactions to incoming data, both CPI and retail sales, Jim Bianco Research.
Bloomberg Surveillance starting at 7 a.m. on Bloomberg 1130, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
And watch us on Bloomberg Television, Xfinity, channel 1122.
Financial advisors, are you looking to add or switch custodians? Are you going independent? Interactive Brokers provides the lowest cost trading and turnkey custody solutions for all size firms. Trade globally from a single integrated master account with no ticket charges, no custody fees, no minimums, and no tech, platform, or reporting fees. Plus, IBKR has no advisory team or prop trading group to compete with you for your clients. Switch to the custody solutions that work for you at ibkr.com/RIA.
Remember when, at the beginning of the pandemic, President Donald Trump suggested disinfectant might cure COVID? It just seemed nuts. A radical group made a fortune doing just that. Join me for Smokescreen Deadly Cure. I'm Kristen V. Brown, a reporter for Bloomberg. From Neon Hum, Sony Music Entertainment, and Bloomberg, Smokescreen Deadly Cure is available now. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts to binge all episodes now or listen weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
This commercial's just a minute, but sometimes that's all it takes. I'm Frank Calamari, president of Calvary Hospital, a hospital unlike any other. Calvary provides extra special care to people living with very complex medical needs, with cancer, heart, kidney failure, COPD, and other serious illnesses. Loving, compassionate, expert care in our hospital or in your home relieves their pain and improves quality of life. And not just for the person who's sick. We also care for families and loved ones, because we know they need comfort too. If you or someone you love is facing a life-limiting illness, take a minute and talk to us about Calvary Care, our 123-year tradition of compassion, caring, commitment, dignity, and non-abandonment. Call 718-518-2000 for the extra special care you need, or visit calvaryhospital.org. Calvary Hospital, where life continues.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash. It's 4:21 on Wall Street. We check the markets all day long at Bloomberg. Lots of earnings after the bell, including Airbnb. That stock right now up by roughly 10.5%. Airbnb gave an outlook for revenue in the first quarter that beat analyst estimates, signaling that travel demand remains robust, even after a record year for growth in 2022. Again, we've got the stock up more than 10% after ours. Big day for a couple of other well-known travel companies today. Marriott International after earnings up today by 4%. Avis budget shares, they surged today by 10.7%. Also reporting earnings after the close of trading, we heard from Akamai. Fourth quarter revenue beat estimates. Akamai shares, they're up now by just about 3.8%. Briefly, we also heard from Devon Energy. It sees 2023 CapEx in the range of $3.6 to $3.8 billion. Estimates were for $3.42 billion. However, after ours, we've got shares of Devon trading lower by just about 3%. S&P 500 index closing just about flat on the day, a CPI Tuesday. Right now, we've got the Dow down 156, down 0.5%. NASDAQ end of the day higher by 68 points, up by about 0.6%. 10-year yield 3.74%. The 2-year yield 4.61%. Gold up 0.1%, 18.55 the ounce. While West Texas Intermediate crude was down 1.3%, 79.11 a barrel. So again, recapping, after earnings, Airbnb up now by 10%, S&P down 1 point. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Bloomberg Business Week is brought to you by Innovation Refunds. This is your daily reminder from Innovation Refunds. It is time to take advantage of a newly extended employee retention credit. Innovation Refunds has helped small and medium-sized businesses impacted by COVID-19 claim over $3 billion in refunds. And they're standing by to help your business get back the money it may be eligible to receive. Learn more, just head to getrefunds.com. All right, you're listening and watching Bloomberg Business Week on this Tuesday. Carol Masser along with Madison Mills and Sherry Garcia, Chunky Monkey, Netflix and Chill. You hear that, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about Ben & Jerry's, an iconic brand known as much for its memorable ice cream flavors as it is for its activist impulses. All good, right? Well, not so, especially when the brand is part of a larger corporate owner. So writing about all of this and Ben & Jerry's latest crusade that started a civil war at Unilever, it's a great headline, is Devin Leonard. He's projects and investigations reporter at Bloomberg Business Week. He joins us at our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Try that again. The story, by the way, in the new double issue of Business Week, which is out on newsstands later on this week on the Bloomberg and at Bloomberg.com/businessweek. And you wrote this story, you had a co-writer with Dasha Afanasieva of Bloomberg News. So it's a killer story. I feel like it could be a Netflix documentary or something. But tell us about the mission here.
Well, I think everybody knows about Ben & Jerry's, and I think a lot of people knew about the lawsuit. Ben & Jerry's suing Unilever, its owner. But what people don't know about it is there's a 3-decade-long saga, leading up to this. It involves Ben & Jerry's presence in Israel that goes back to like 1987. And then there was a long debate, at the company, what to do about its presence on the West Bank. They were targeted by BDS activists in 2011, and then they finally make this decision a decade later, and it completely blows up on them, even though Unilever initially supported it. But there's just such a rich story there, and we just wanted to dig into that. And so the result is basically the longest story I've ever done for Bloomberg Business Week, and I've been here since 2010.
How long did you work on this?
It wasn't so much the time. It's the word count, not to scare the readers off, but
anything Devin does is great.
But it's that rich is my point. So no pun intended. It's that shock. Anyway,
Dyson is rich too.
Right.
I mean, it's filled with so many incredible anecdotes, and yeah, this is a big pack of papers I'm holding here. But one anecdote I'd like to ask you about is this person who was working out in the gym next to Jerry Greenfield and approached him about the company selling their product in Israel. Please give us that story and how you found it also.
Well, I mean, that sort of is really what triggered this whole thing, because that's a guy with Farrar. He's a Palestinian immigrant. He lives up in the Burlington area, but he gets involved in this group, the Vermonters for Justice in Palestine, and they started pushing Ben & Jerry's to basically not just to pull out of the West Bank, to pull out of Israel, but the company was sort of it's a social justice company, so they were sort of trying to talk to them about this. But basically one day Farrar's in the gym in Burlington, he looks over and there's Jerry Greenfield. So he basically sort of confronts them, all about the company's presence on the West Bank, and it's I went up to Burlington and interviewed him in a coffee shop, and he told me that story, and it was just like, you do so much reporting for a story like this, but you're like, what? That is going in the story. So
exactly. I do wonder about, I think about Ben & Jerry's, their brand and what they stand for is just so much a part of, it is their culture, right? Beyond, the products that they offer.
Right.
I mean, Unilever had to know what they were getting into. So talk to us a little bit about, Devin, the backing and then not backing. Did it just get too uncomfortable?
Well, I mean, that's a whole big, part of the story too. Basically, when Ben & Jerry, literally, Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield sold Ben & Jerry's to Unilever. Right. Part of the deal was that there'd be an independent board that controlled the social mission and so the positions that they take on things like the environment, and then later on sort of racial justice issues and things like that. And that's kind of what sets Ben & Jerry's apart. That's what everybody thinks of when they think of Ben & Jerry's. It's kind of a social justice, kind of progressive brand. And, clearly, back in 2000 when Unilever bought the company, they agreed to this, and for years and years and years, they've gone along with it. And so then in 2021, we know when the Ben & Jerry's board says, okay, we want to pull out of the West Bank, initially Unilever sort of, they said, well, we want to stay in Israel, but they kind of accepted it because, they kind of had to. The problem was that all these investors started dumping their shares, especially all these state pension funds, and it just got hotter and hotter and hotter, and so they came up with this deal to just sell the business in Israel to the licensee there, who is able to go, continue to sell in the occupied territories, and then that's why Ben & Jerry's sues them. But yeah, I mean, it just and actually, Unilever it tries to be a social justice company too, and a progressive company too, so.
Well, I have to say, that's what's kind of interesting, because you do have a lot of conversations with leaders of companies, publicly held companies, especially coming off of the pandemic and George Floyd, and saying,
absolutely.
We need to take a stand, we need to take positions on things until it gets uncomfortable.
Until it gets too expensive.
Right, or shareholders fight back.
Yeah, and also it depends on the stand. There are certain stands, that are acceptable.
This is a tricky one, right?
Right. Yeah, this is clearly turned out to be a bridge too far, both for Ben & Jerry's and obviously for Unilever.
So then they end up settling in the end. Can you give me the brief overview of how they get to that final conclusion?
Well, the settlement was confidential, and actually, Dash and I wound up in Anurada Mittal's office. She's the chairperson of the independent board that day, and then all of a sudden, she is a self-described activist. I'm an activist, and all of a sudden,
who was shocked that she was put on the board, right?
Yeah, she's right, exactly in 2007. But so then, all of a sudden, she can't talk. But then the Ben & Jerry's law firm, 5 days later, issues a statement saying, oh, it's a favorable resolution, and talking, the lawyer talks about, the board showed, so much courage standing up to, it just smacked of, a victory statement, and, yet, here's this guy, the Israeli licensee. He's still selling Ben & Jerry's. He can't use the English logo, but he can use it in Hebrew and Arabic. He's still selling, Chunky Monkey and Cherry Garcia on the West Bank. So how was the settlement a victory? And I think ultimately, talking to people about this, I think Unilever, I think they were both sides, Ben & Jerry's and Unilever, was worried that a judge would rule in the Ben & Jerry's lawsuit that the independent board that's responsible for the social mission, that you have no power, you can't sue, and the judicial system would just wipe that out. And I think Unilever was like, whoa, we don't want to do that because we want to at least have the appearance that,
which goes back to
that they're independent, they take these stands, but as we can see now from this, clearly Unilever's the one in control, not the independent board.
So what happens to Ben & Jerry? Just got about 30 seconds left here. Do they go and ultimately at some point go back on their own, or somebody else picks them up?
Well, the question is, of course, in the midst of all this, what happens? But Unilever announces it has a new CEO. Heinz Schumacher, he's more of a numbers guy. Meanwhile, you have an activist investor, on the board, Nelson Peltz. I think, everything's up, it's hard to say things are being sold at the company. Will Ben & Jerry's be sold? It seemed impossible before, maybe not now.
I think it's so fascinating because you have all of these big major companies, and they often are buying smaller brands, niche brands, right? That often have these social causes or mission, and then it's like,
be careful, right?
Right, we love it,
yeah.
No, we don't.
You do. And again, to your point, Carol, you're getting into it. Ben & Jerry's, they've been walking the walk on these issues from the very beginning.
From day one. Devin Leonard, everything you do is just pretty incredible, and glad you survived this one.
Yes.
Devin Leonard, he's Projects and Investigations reporter at Bloomberg Business Week. This story in the upcoming new issue, it's a double issue of Bloomberg Business Week, as we mentioned. It'll be on newsstands on Thursday, but it's already on the Bloomberg, and you can also find it at Bloomberg.com/businessweek. All right, let's get to world and national news. Off to Nancy Lyons we go. She's in our 99.1 newsroom in D.C. Hey, Nan.
Thanks, Carol. Senator Dianne Feinstein of California will not seek re-election in 2024. Bloomberg's Washington correspondent Joe Matthew has more on her Senate career.
She's the oldest member of the Senate and its longest-serving Democrat, having arrived in the chamber in 1992, dubbed the Year of the Woman, when a record 5 female senators were elected following backlash over the handling of sexual harassment allegations